I think the title here is somewhat provocative. I think it's intended, let's discuss, because so much change is happening. So much change needs to happen. So perhaps we could use this forum here to turn it into a discussion on what's the 3, 4, 5 most important things. What I've tried to do is have conversations with some customers and some partners, not only here and at the pre-party yesterday, but also throughout the last couple of months as we settled on this, to try to get some input. First, a little bit on who am I. Niels was very kind to mention the conference that I organize once every year in November with a tweet from 5-6 years ago, which I think is an internal truth. This part about technology being a small percentage and the people and the agency being a bigger percentage. This is from the conference we had this November, where I brought the Amazon Echo Dot, which I got at this event last year. So also just to make a connection, I was here last year. And again, the Amazon Echo Dot is just one example of something that's going super fast and totally changing the expectations that customers are having. Besides doing conferences and sometimes being very fortunate to be invited to conferences and even more fortunate to be invited back, so thank you for having me, I organize a community all year round where we facilitate groups. Chris Köhler is one of our members, and the groups are really a simple format, no more than 20 people, that meets 3 to 4 times a year and discusses. Sometimes we will have a guest speaker. Niels has also been a guest speaker at one of our Danish groups. But most often we'll meet and we'll discuss, and there'll be an agenda based on what are the current hot topics, recent learnings, recent mistakes, recent successes. And of course, for me, that's a huge source of inspiration. And just like I felt this morning in Niels's keynote, how passionate he is after so many years. This is when one of my first encounters with Niels back in 2005 when he went to Aarhus. And Code Garden was still in Copenhagen back then, sitting next to David Nüssler from Day Software back then, which became Adobe. But I think similar to the passion you saw this morning, for me the passion is to be a part of this industry that's so fast moving, that's having such a transformative effect on businesses in all industries. I think that's really interesting. And that's kind of my platform for building also these slides. Along the way, I've done also a little bit of analyst work and some consulting work, and that's kind of the experience I build on. And actually I speak German as well. So if some of you are not super fluent in English and want to have some input in German or in Danish, we can handle that as well. I used to live in Bad Homburg, not so far away from here, when I worked for a CMS vendor even longer ago. So let's get started and just set the stage. I think you are all experts, but just spend a few minutes on setting the stage. Just like Niels, I brought a lot of slides. This is somewhat how I see the marketplace for the first 17 years, kind of one size fits all. Of course, there were differences, but whether you were a bank or a university or a small or a large, we quite often try to solve the problems with the same kind of tool from the one size fits all store. This is how it was for a long time. When we, in this forum, talked content management, we really at the end of the day managed pages. Content, yes, but pages. Some were more visionary and talked about document types or content types, but at the end of the day, for most, it was pages. And humans were the ones who consumed this content. As you just saw with Amazon, Alexa, or Echo Dot, that's changing. And this was also kind of just the established conventional wisdom that if you wanted a CMS, it was difficult to install. It took time. Then, as with Noah's Ark, something always happens. And I was here, like I said, last year, so happy to be invited back. And I put the sticker on my laptop now. Here was my message when I was here last year. These were my key bullets, so that's not something I made up. That's from the slides I introduced here last year when we talked about the CMS marketplace and the big trends. And these were the trends I described a year ago. I think, to be completely honest, if you asked me for the 2018 trends, I would probably put some of the same things. For sure, I have not yet met an organization which is entirely done with privacy. Nobody's at the finishing line when it comes to artificial intelligence. And then you can always argue, is search engine optimization really that tremendously important? I think it is. I'm going to have a lot of slides building on insights from Google, because Google is what I think everybody of us uses all the time, and that brings a lot of data that we can use to inform trends. Being where your users are, meaning also on smartphones, out in the field, in the train, on an info screen, on a desktop. And then business development, you could paraphrase that in 2018 also to follow the money. The success of Shopify, the huge rise in e-commerce. Thinking about business development, being able to measure and use KPIs for your initiatives, not just build another brochure site, but actually doing something that makes a genuine difference. So that was setting the stage. Then Umbraco also had a great year in 2017. Some of you may have seen this, those of you who read Danish. This is from the Danish version of Computer World. This is the headline, really, Nils saying that we cracked not the code, but we cracked the nut on how to be an open source project and make money, growing revenue, doubling revenue from approximately 2 million euro to 4 million euro, and having huge ambitions. So this was, I think, a really nice and also well-deserved story. And like I said, now when I'm going to get started to talk about what needs to change, don't get this in the wrong context. For me, this is, having followed Umbraco, even though from a distance, I have huge admiration and respect for what's been done. And I think just this event here in Germany is a testament to that. So my input is very much not to be seen as criticism, but as I think that's where I would focus on to make it even better. All right, having said that, I'm still near the window. If you come running after me, I can escape that way. So here we go, how Umbraco needs to change. First, let me start here. Not more jokes about what happens in an airport in the capital, but I don't know if you know this smiling couple. I'm sure you know the lady. The man might be a little bit lesser known here. That's our Prime Minister. And why are they so happy and smiling? Of course, because Denmark and Germany have a really special relationship, and certainly being the little brother or the smaller part in their relationship, for us as Danes, Germany is ultra important. It's ultra important not just for history and culture and language. Of course, it's also extremely important for business. What you may not know as well, just like you may have not immediately recognized our Prime Minister, you may not know that also actually today is a holiday in Denmark. Again, to save a little bit of money, we condensed a few holidays into one, and then we made this great prayer day, which is the fourth Friday after Easter. So actually, my inbox is a little bit quieter today because everybody in Denmark is on an extended weekend. And this kind of gets me to the first point where I think Umbraco needs to change, and that's focus on Germany, not just when Denmark is on vacation or on extended weekends. I think it makes so much sense to look right here as the neighboring country. I think actually if you're in Odense, going to the German border in a car is even faster than going to the airport in Copenhagen, and there's a huge potential here. And this would be my number one recommendation. I was hoping that somebody would clap and really agree with this. I was thinking this is kind of a warm-up point. It's always a little bit difficult to be right after lunch. And particularly when the lunch is so good. So let's do one more. I have 7. So one more. You can probably guess where this is going. This over here is a screenshot that may be hard to see from those on the back row. This is a screenshot where I actually managed to grab all the US partners on one screen, 9 partners. Here it's a little bit more legible. This is the German partners, location Germany. You can see down here both are gold partners. Perhaps even both are in the room, I don't know. Let's see the next one. This is Kentico. You can compare with 1,000 different products, 1,000 different vendors. I compared to Kentico. I was not able to find out, I'm not as technical as some of you, I was not able to find out how to do the screenshot so that it scrolled all the way to the bottom. They have 28 partners in Germany. And when you go to their website, you can see more than 1,000 partners in 80+ countries are ready to help you. And I think an important point here is also you can see there's a further level of difference in the kind of partner network structure. They have gold partners, they have silver partners, I think they have bronze partners as well. So there's a hierarchy in that. That's one partner network out of many. Here's Dean Barker, who is keynoting in Code Garden, or having a talk at least in Code Garden next month. This was his quote, and he was one of the persons I asked about what is his view on Umbraco, and the partner network is slim in North America. I think that's the truth. And I also think, again, to go back to the famous tweet that Nils referred to, if you really agree with that technology is 20-30% and the partner network and the competences and the right team is a higher percentage, then the partner network is really something that needs to be worked on. Not just in North America, it would be great also in Germany and in the rest of the world. Here's a story not from this famous game, but also from some of the input I got was from a former Danish partner. I'll not mention their name, but they said they did not want to stay a gold partner with Umbraco because they had the feeling that Umbraco was taking the money and investing it into the cloud solution, which was not really helpful for them because that's not really the business they wanted. And I think, and I'll come back to this in also some of the other points, that's how it sometimes is with change. That when you decide to go left, some might say, that's not where I want to go right. But I still think that for a smaller community like the Umbraco community still is, again, with all respect, when you have partners leaving, it's always, for me, a little bit a question mark because you lose a lot of experience and a lot of talent. And I've heard also yesterday from several in the pre-party the difficulties in recruiting talent. And so there's an added dimension there. So that was partners. Anybody disagree with this? Everybody still awake? All right. So let's do one more. So this is from the same article, just scrolling a little bit further down. This is from the same article where, you saw the photo of Nils standing and, Umbraco had doubled their revenue. And I indicated with bold this sentence down here, where the journalist said, this is not quoting Nils, but the journalist said, competitors are players, which is an interesting choice of words, like Google, Sitecore, WordPress, and Adobe. And then I emailed Nils, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, and I said, was this your quote, or was it the journalist? And he said, at least Google was not his. All right, I thought that was a little bit strange. I think I've tried to follow the huge marketplace. I wasn't really sure what customers were trying to do with Google that was comparable to Umbraco. But it leaves us with the others, Sitecore, WordPress, and Adobe. And if we do search for Sitecore, as you do, and I take the screenshots here because who knows, perhaps next year I might get invited back and things can change. It's interesting to see how much competition there is for the AdWords up here, but that's a totally different story. But to perhaps get to be a little bit more controversial, if you listen carefully in the keynote, you heard Nils saying that nobody else uses the term CMS, we're the only ones left. I saw it here. What is a CMS? But okay, let's leave that. That's one competitor. I think knowledge of Sitecore is in the room. You can always say, is this the Lamborghini of CMS or is it the Volkswagen of CMS? Who knows? I think that's kind of a different conversation, but that's one that Umbraco got compared to. Then Nils said instead of Google, you could put in Episerver instead because you run up against Episerver from time to time. According to Wikipedia, they say Web Content Management, and they say they are the best .NET CMS, and there was even one who wanted to buy the AdWord on that, and they have Episerver CMS there. So yeah, I know it's not open source, it's different. And it's also interesting down here to see what else does people search for. And so clearly there's a lot of competition in the commercial space between Sitecore and Episerver. When I looked at Umbraco and what do people also search for, so that's kind of the intelligence of the, wisdom of the crowd. Here is what people kind of search for. There's .NET Nuke, Kentico, CMS, Drupal. So that might be what perhaps some customers are comparing Umbraco to. I think that's interesting as well in terms of trying to really understand what is Umbraco, what's our market position. Because that could then turn into a conversation on where do we want to go for the future. So, which one is it? Are we the developer's preferred tool? Are we the new WordPress? Are we something else? Are we competing with Episerver, with Sitecore? I think there could be more options here, but I would argue that it's very hard to be more than one. I love being very ambitious. I think I'm quite ambitious myself as well, but you also sometimes need to factor in reality, and with limited resources, I also think one thing is limited resources. There's a limit to how much engineering capacity you have, even in an open source project, but also in terms of market positioning and all these other things. Which one is it? So, like in one of my favorite films, The Matrix, there's a choice to be made. Do you want to go down that road? And I don't know if you know Doug Linder, he made this famous quote. I think this quote makes very much sense to me if you want to go in the high end of the market. Look both ways before you cross the one-way street. A very famous quote. So, that was my number 3. Which market is Umbraco really in? I think if we asked this crowd, we would probably also get different answers. And that's, to be fair, would probably also happen if I did the same at a Sitecore event or Episerver event. But I think it would be a huge strength for Umbraco to be clear on this and have a clear message on this. Even if it might mean, like it did in the second point, that some partners may then leave out the window or out the front door. That's okay. I think having a clear positioning is really attractive. All right, that was number 3. So let's do something else. And again, for those of you not from Denmark, you have probably not seen this ad. I took this ad because when I thought about what's some of the best marketing I could think of from Denmark, I thought of this travel agent. Spiesreiser is in Denmark. They're owned by Thomas Cook, but they're in Denmark known for really making some good marketing. And they made this video, which I will not play here. It's perhaps bordering on slightly inappropriate. But they're really trying, as a travel agent, to address the problem of Denmark's falling birth rate. So really they're encouraging people to go on vacation and make babies. It's a memorable 2-minute or 1 minute and 59 seconds ad. Do it for Denmark. In Germany, some are also good at marketing. This is from the rental car company Sixt, which uses Silvio Berlusconi here to rent some more cars. All right? So, from a marketing point of view, these are memorable messages that sticks in your mind and perhaps even makes you smile. In our industry now, to move a little bit from rental cars and going on holidays, here is, I think, an important decision matrix for many buyers, in the high end at least. They look at Gartner, which is a little bit hard to see down here. This is the Magic Quadrant for digital experiences in December 2017. And this is something that we discuss quite often in peer group meetings, and Chris has also been a part of some of the discussions where we kind of, sometimes at least the discussions confirm that everybody around the room thinks that this is not the entire reality that we see. There are, of course, also huge regional differences. I don't know, actually, to be completely honest, what is the IBM answer to digital experience, just to take one example. And there are some down here that I have hardly heard of. But hey, such is the marketplace. It keeps moving. And I think if Umbraco keeps growing, it's not so unthinkable that in a future, Umbraco will be there as well, hopefully in the Magic Quadrant, meaning being visionary, because Umbraco is certainly visionary. And then the This here is completeness of vision, and up here is ability to execute. So hopefully Umbraco lands here. This is what you need in revenue to get to it, and they keep increasing it. So you need to move higher and higher. But as you can imagine, for a company like Sitecore and Adobe, this is really great for them. But the company who, with my market knowledge, has benefited the most from this is right below, and that's LiveRay. They are open source too, not .NET, but they are, if you like this, the best rated open source product. And they have salespeople that can really, they don't have to be so aggressive on selling anymore, because this opens the doors. So that's one way. Make this your goal. I know it was a huge milestone for Kentico Software, just to use them as an example again, when they made it. So that's made a big difference for them as well. Then I wanted to show you some of these Google trends. Do you want to guess which product this is? This is 5 years of Google searches for one of the vendors. That's evidently not going so well. Don't worry, it's not Umbraco. This is Drupal. And I think this fits a little bit, I don't know so much about Germany, but this fits a little bit with Drupal. It kind of resonates with me. There was a huge hype around it. So let's take a look at another one. This is one that's going from 50 to a little bit below 50. Do you want to guess who this is? Don't worry, it's WordPress. So WordPress also had a huge peak around some time, and it's also slowly but surely going down. So let's look at Umbraco. Actually, it's going down a little bit, starting up here around 75, and now it's kind of down here a little over 50. For what it's worth, I think this is really bad news. This is not how it should be. A community like Umbraco should be growing. We can always argue, should it grow like the revenue? Should it double every year? But this is, for me, something that would make me somewhat nervous. We're not making enough noise. We're not making the marketing. We're not generating the interest. Say again? Oh.
We write some bots too.
Yeah, exactly. Keep searching. Keep searching. I don't know about that. And here, if we put the three together, WordPress, Umbraco, Drupal, then Umbraco is almost like, you know, there's almost nothing. Drupal is higher, and WordPress. And I think, again, okay, this fits a little bit with my view of the marketplaces. Umbraco is, again, with all the respect, and I think it's amazing what's been built. WordPress and Drupal are bigger. Okay, so let's just look a little bit more at this just to compare how some others are moving. And here, if we move with Kentico, which is kind of going flat, and then the red one down here I think is interesting because they're coming out of nowhere, and they are now almost at Kentico level. That's Contentful. I don't know if you've heard of Contentful, but in the context of headless CMSs and APIs, they're really a startup in Berlin that I think actually got funded right around over there 5 years ago and have grown rapidly. Really seen a sweet spot in the market. If you ask them, and I think also if you ask their customers, they will give you a very clear answer to what they are and what they are not. And they have had, I think for this industry, a quite remarkable journey. Other stuff has also happened in 5 years. Don't worry, I'm not going to keep going through all of these stats. But let's just look at Shopify and HubSpot. You know, I was on a flight to the HubSpot inbound conference in Boston a few months ago, and the flight was full of people from Denmark going to Boston because HubSpot has, I think, done a really, really good job at owning inbound marketing as a term. Shopify, I think it's even more impressive. They are coming from a little bit higher up than Umbraco, but have really managed to do something when it comes to e-commerce. It's really tremendous. I think that's a quite impressive journey, what they've done in the last 5 years. All right, raising awareness. You got the point. That's what I wanted to say. All right. Do I need to open the window? Get ready. All right, so Finnish Sanna Silventoinen had also this tweet from 2 years ago talking about, do you want to build a web app or a native app or a bot? This was some advice from her fellow countryman Perttu Tolvanen, who was sharing some of his advice when you want to choose how to deliver your content. And Nils says this morning, don't forget the C in the CMS. I asked him also to give me some input for this talk, and he said content is becoming just one piece of the puzzle. I think you could have said this also last year. I didn't say it had to be something that's changed from January 1st and forward, but I think this is an important point of view also in how we design systems and how we build our solutions. I already showed this photo. Alexa or Echo Dot really delivers content. And that's a different way to present content. I think voice is a huge game changer because it's the ultimate interface. I don't have to learn coding. I only have to learn how to speak. And then it will tell me and give me answers. I think that's really amazing. And I think as with many other kinds of technology, we tend to underestimate the impact or overestimate the impact in the short term, but I'm pretty sure we are underestimating how big an impact it will really have in 2-3 years. Adrian Bloom is a digital manager with NBC in the Middle East, in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai. And he's saying, I think, essentially the same thing. That content is no longer just pages. And so I think as a number 5, we have to really start thinking about these Lego blocks that is content. How can we deliver them? How can we work with them? How can we compose them in this rapidly changing omni-channel content landscape? It's no longer pages. This page metaphor perhaps doesn't even make sense anymore. Perhaps it's holding us back. Having content that lives somewhere in a navigational tree that belongs to some pages, perhaps that's no longer the right way to think. It's worth exploring. I think there's a huge potential here, and I think also Contentful is doing something there. I think that's really, really interesting. Gather Content comes to mind as another vendor that's really started out with content migration, but is now being used for many other things. All of a sudden, there's a lot of innovation and a lot of buzz happening around content insights. So many things happening around content, which I did not see happening just a few years ago. Then, let's take the next one. Philip Kotler, one of the most famous, if not fathers, of marketing, modern marketing. He said this very often used quote that I think is what your customers, as the Umbraco partners in the room, are asking for as well. They're not necessarily asking for Umbraco, they're asking for a hole in the wall. And then Umbraco can deliver that. And so keep that in mind also. I think that's really important. And like Nils said, I didn't take a new photo this morning, but I was happy to kind of see the exact same slide again. There's enough complexity in the marketplace. There's enough complexity from a buyer point of view in having to navigate among open source vendors, among system integrators, among design agencies, among SEO experts. There's enough complexity already. So I think there's a huge need to try to do as many things as possible simpler. And like Nils said this morning, what's simple to me is perhaps even simpler to you, or perhaps a little bit harder to you. So I think that's important to have in mind as well. But my point here is that this is what it's really about. It's when we drill this hole in the wall, that's what the customers want, making them more successful. It's great to have these case studies like the Danish Football Association and Carlsberg and others. Umbraco needs many more of those who are much more successful. I think that's, at the end of the day, if you want to talk about the long-term survival of this project, I think this is the key also to longer-term loyalty. Not just, I think also this fits, in my view, with the Umbraco spirit, that we don't want to lock them in on the cloud or on whatever solution we offer them, just because it's technically kind of annoying to have to migrate to something else later down the road. But we want them to stay with us, because with us they are more successful. And again, going back to this original tweet that Nils introduced this morning, they are more successful with us because it's not just about Umbraco, it's about Umbraco together with you, the partners, that makes the customers more successful. To me, that resonates with the spirit of this community more so than I feel it does with others, where this kind of gets interpreted more as, let's lock them in. All right, I have one more missing, and then there's time to discuss. Let's see if you agree with the last one. Again, back to the Matrix and dodging a bullet. I don't know if you remember this scene from the film. I think that's really about being agile. This is about being fast, or perhaps not really going anywhere, you could argue as well. But Jack Welch, on a serious note, he had something smart to say about this. He's the former now Chief Executive Officer of General Motors, who was it for a long time. And again, this is back to a point that I think I've now made more than once, the rate of change. We need to be faster. We need to change faster. We need to help our customers move faster. Fast and performance also in the point of view in that we need to give them a system, a digital platform where they can move fast, if they have a campaign, where they can move fast if they have 20,000 pages, which I heard from multiple is not the strength of the product at the moment. Not just moving fast, but also having a website that's performing really fast. And again, it's about that rate of change. And so you've heard, I think in the sessions already this morning, some new terms like variants, headless. I think this project needs to change even faster. I know there's already been a lot of change in Umbraco, also on the inside, from a business point of view, new hires, etc. in the last 1 and 2 years. The outside world is not standing still, as you all know. Yes, when I started my talk, you could say the trends are not so different from last year. But again, when we look a little bit closer at artificial intelligence, or at voice, or at bots, or at the expectations I have as an editor, or the expectations I have as a head of finance who wants to make money and sell more, or as a head of communication, my expectations keep going up. So what was a good and beautiful and simple and easy to use content management system 2 years ago now looks like something from the medieval ages. Why do I have to fill out so many forms? Why is it not this? Why is it not that? The expectations keep going up. So this is, I think, perhaps the most painful part, to realize that, yes, we are on a place now. It's really, I think well earned to also stop for a moment and look back and say, wow, what a journey. We've come a great way with the Umbraco community. And I think that's a lot also thanks to all the partners here in this room. But what got us from A to B is not going to get us to C. And that's my last point, be faster. And with that, I had 7 points on how Umbraco needs to change to survive. And before I summarize, I'm really curious to hear feedback from the room. We have time, so we can finish on time. Anybody? Yes, let's start with you.
Now, I'm not a big fan of blowing Niels' horn here, especially when he's in the room. But I actually disagree with a number of the points that you had.
Great.
I disagree with the fact that Sitecore and AP servers are Umbraco's primary competitors.
Did I say that?
No, Niels actually said.
Oh, okay.
We have the luck to actually work together with Umbraco and Sitecore and Kingsco and Sitefinity, so I know all of these companies very well. And there's actually not one of these vendors that has a dedicated mission as clearly formulated as Umbraco has. That focus on the editor experience and actually making them heroes of their own workplace, I don't see that anywhere else. I see overloaded platforms with a lot of functionality, but that focus on simplicity and cutting through to make the editor experience great, that is where Umbraco shines in my point of view. And I've seen that movement from a development platform focused on developers to a platform that you can develop, but is focused on editors. And I think that's the human element, and I think every one of these platforms needs to go down that route, and I think Umbraco's got a head start on.
All right, good. Anybody else? Or you want to comment on that or comment on this?
What I have to share with this is the partner problem. And, we were a certified partner, and now we are no more because they just changed the rules and we are out. And that's something which is not helpful. So if people have the feeling that there need to be more partners, so why didn't they find another way to manage that? I understand that they maybe need to have more revenue from the partnerships, and that's okay. But it would have been more wise to build on top and say, okay, we have gold partners, we have certified partners, let's do some platinum level over that to generate some revenue. But to just say, I'm sorry, you're no more a partner, that's not helpful.
Okay, fair feedback. Did I see somebody else also wanted to? I think the floor is just open for all kinds of input, feedback on any other points. Some of the points that if you disagree with them, that's totally fine. If there's something else that you think, in your view, is really an area where Umbraco needs to change, I would be really curious, and I think so would everybody else. Yes, Rune?
Not for that point, but you were talking about raising awareness and making noise. What's the best way of doing that? The most sustainable way?
I'm not sure I'm the best one to answer it. Perhaps somebody else in the room is more on top of that than me. I can try.
You've seen what some other
sure. Yeah, I think that's that's a fair point. Let's get back to. I'll write it down, Rune, and then we can perhaps see what else comes on the table, and then we can go through it. Anybody else?
If I can just comment on that one,
yes.
Because that whole Gardener Forester thing, I mean, it is a fast track, especially in the US, to get the attention of the big buyers, and many of those software buyers, they subscribe to that truth that is in there. So having your face on the cover, so to speak, is definitely a fast track to going that phase. But again, as it may be with Gold partners in Umbraco, it's also a crowded marketplace. So there are many others in there as well.
Sure.
They need to stand out. But no question. I mean, to me, you mentioned that Germany was a growth market that Umbraco should be focused on. With all due respect to Germany and Germans, I mean, the US, come on. That's where we need to break the key.
Why?
Because it's such a big market, and because
because it's bigger.
Because it's bigger, and the technologies that I'll just live there, and the technologies and the customers are using over there, they're so ancient. We're almost back to DOS prompts when they're working in their systems. So if we just had a chance to show them the intuitive, editorial-friendly view of Umbraco and what they can do with it, I believe that would be the way forward.
Okay. Anybody else? Come on, you work with this every day, right? There must be, this is, I think, a unique opportunity. Yeah, you go again. Oh, Martin, yeah?
Yes. I've attended a talk lately by the guy from the Kentico Cloud, and they were focusing about this omni-channel content distribution. And they've built in some features which enables editors and developers to distribute this content in a more convenient way or easier. And I think that this is also something, because in all projects which we are building, we are usually developing features to do this, to integrate with social medias, to integrate with some third-party tools. Of course, some of them are just an integrations or additions, and it's not the ideal to bring them into the product, but to expose, and I think that the headless is the idea of it, to expose data and make it easier to consume by third-party tools, and make it this omni-channel content distribution easier, and maybe even introduce how to do it and what are the possibilities, even bringing more noise into the community, because you can do this and that with this software and this social media or group. This is my opinion.
Okay, good. Yes?
I'm repeating myself. I told this.
I think repetition is fine.
Maybe a question first. How is Microsoft the image of Microsoft in Denmark? Is it positive or negative? Because in Germany, it's a case if you listen, okay, Umbraco, cool, but we need a Windows server. Oh, no. Our IT doesn't allow Microsoft server, Windows server. So there are many IT professionals in Germany are biased and don't want Microsoft platforms.
Yeah, again, I feel like I will try to make some input on it, perhaps similar to the other one, on how to make the best kind of noise or more noise. I think there are some other Danes here. My impression is that Microsoft has a good reputation in Denmark. They're a large employer. Using modern tools like Office 365 is not something that has a bad reputation. I think in general they're seen as quite innovative, and my impression is that .NET usage is more widespread in Denmark or in the Nordics than in Germany. Would you agree? Yeah.
I think it's a problem in Germany.
So I can add some input from Poland. It's also the same as in Denmark. Microsoft is well known, it has reputation. We have a lot of .NET developers, but most of them don't know about Umbraco at all. They don't think that they can use Umbraco for different purposes. They think about CMS just as a CMS, content delivery platform, but they don't feel, as a developers, that they can use it for different purposes. And then agencies, companies, they don't even think about using Umbraco for something it's useful for. And I think that this is the way how it might probably help Umbraco grow, to expose possibilities of and the way how it can be consumed as a part of the puzzle, because CMS can be just part of the puzzle in the bigger system, the bigger architecture, or even the system spread it across the different areas, right?
Okay, good. Yeah. Anybody else wants to comment?
Just for the German market, I was wondering if you're seeing a change in the attitude towards Microsoft. Because I feel like overall it's become a lot more positive. They've done a lot of great things over the last couple of years.
I expected this because Microsoft is opening into the open source market. But I think the IT professionals are focused on Linux servers.
Okay, yeah.
All right. I think Mike...
At some point in Germany, where people, if you say, we have to deploy on a Windows server, they say, wow! And this is a reflex. There's nothing rational behind it.
Okay, maybe this is my impression is this is some kind of old school and new school thing. So there's a change, which has a delay, maybe 5-6 years, maybe compared to other countries. That's the thing. We see a rising demand of Umbraco in Germany. We get more requests in the last 8 or 9 months, so there's a change. But when it comes to the perception of the .NET in general, it has a good reputation as a development platform, but we have a lot of preoccupations when it's about like old school administrators that are not ready at being DevOps or whatever, or the same people who are afraid of the cloud are the people that are afraid of Microsoft. Even though Microsoft is not like the first mover in the cloud, it's like this. We have this generation change. That's my perception. One obstacle in Germany still is that at universities, the professors are totally anti-Microsoft. So they tell all the students that just the old story of Microsoft is evil and open source equals Linux. So, and they always tell the same story that no matter what people tell you about an open source system on the Microsoft stack, that it's not real open source. So, and they're really pushing this really hard. So this is still, when I'm in contact with students, still a thing that when people hit the real work environment after university, they are surprised how much Microsoft products are around and how much openness and source is around. And I feel this is a thing. You know, we have to. You know, it just takes time.
Yeah.
You know, it's a generation change, and I guess as always, like in Germany, it takes a few years longer to have such a change. And we have some systems that are maybe perceived as old schoolish, like Typo 3, are really strong in Germany. Like because the agencies that are not very deep in technology, they just stick what they have, you know, what they have for, I don't know, 15 years, whatever. So it's a combination of all of these factors that you know, makes it a bit different here than anywhere else. Yeah.
Are you going to continue? You can come up here.
It's not the fall of Umbraco, but it's more the .NET thing. I think this will change with Core a lot.
If it's okay, can I pass it on to somebody else?
Yeah.
Are you done?
If you want.
All right, in the back of the room.
I think it's. I agree with your points, but I think we don't. We shouldn't forget the price. And I think for smaller customers, for example, we have so many providers in Germany, and it's for them normal to have a PHP, MySQL solution. And I think this is one of the problems that a lot of people have to pay more to get .NET, and so you must explain them why they should pay it. No.
Okay, I think there was a comment here, and then I'll go back to some of these points.
There is another very good argument for .NET and Umbraco, and that is you work with a strongly typed language, you work with an efficient development environment with a very good debugger and so on, and that produces quality. And our experience is, especially with agencies, that you can't deliver these arguments. They don't have any ears for that. But these are very strong arguments. So in the last time we had to dissolve from one customer. Yeah? So they wanted to have more faster delivery times and so on, and we just had the resources for it. But on the other hand, we said, okay, if you have an idea, you need some days to think about, and you are doing good in waiting for some days until we have a concept. And all of these quality-oriented arguments are very. It's very difficult to deliver them.
Can I
sure.
disagree? We saw this slide. We don't want to have a drill, or we want a hole in the wall. You know, and if you are to say we deliver in quality, you deliver in tools, and not the hole in the wall.
Nobody wants a hole in the wall. They want to put in a screw or something. And if the hole isn't right and the screw falls out, you know, it must have a quality.
You don't understand this metaphor. What you want to say is the jewel is the point. The results we need. The customer is not interested how we are intelligent or what. They want to have a result. They want to have that it works, nothing else.
All right, so let's get back to some of the points I put down here. I think this was really good input. I made a little bit of joke of you, Chris, so thanks for being with that. Breaking the ice, it made people laugh. Yeah, I know, it will haunt me. I think what you said, Chris, resonated with me, particularly when you said in kind of the middle of your speech, real work. Because for me, not this joke about what's real work and what's fake work, but also I think if you're in academia, you can discuss all kinds of things. Theories, this and that. I think if you're in real work, we should look at what are the things we can change, what are the things we can do something about, and what's the most important things of those. And I did not put up here as one of at least my top 7, kind of in the summary over here, that I don't think the market is too small. I don't think you're running out of potential customers. You could lower the price, you could educate more.net, and that would help. But I don't think that's a key problem right now. I think there are so many out there in Germany who will be perfectly happy to use Umbraco. And I'm probably agreeing with you that there are even more in the US. So I don't think, even though that's a day-to-day pain also in terms of recruitment, and you can find haters of .NET, I think they're focused on those who are not haters. There's a lot of them out there. And probably many have not even heard of Umbraco. Then this point on how to make noise, or noise kind of doesn't sound so positive, how to make better marketing, how to raise awareness. For me, my advice would be to realize that at the moment at least, you're not IBM, you're not Google, you cannot outspend your competition. You cannot make something that's, louder than them and, force yourself kind of in front of people's attention span and, Umbraco you. But I think what you can do, and what I see Umbraco trying to do and have come quite a far way, this is perhaps also agreeing with you on the vision mission statement, to do a core story that's different, that's relevant and trustworthy. I think that's a very good place to start, because there is a shortage of those kind of stories in the world today. There's a lot of Me Too. There's a lot of, we're just a cheaper version of EpiServer or whatever, we're the German version of this. But I think Umbraco has a different story, a relevant story, and a trustworthy story. So hold on to that and sharpen it further, and then you will see that grow. And I think that's the right way, not to necessarily buy the billboard in Frankfurt Stadium, but for your core audience to hold on to that, because that will get you, I think, at the end of the day, scalability, where customers will talk to potential customers, where partners will talk to, because it's such a good story when it's refined. It's still a little unpolished, but if it's really refined, it will be such a good story that you will remember it, just like I picked the Silvio Berlusconi marketing, and you will tell it to others. You can perhaps even reach the level where you would tell it to others even if they don't ask. And that would be amazing. And I think the potential for that, because then .NET and this and that becomes much less important. So that would be my advice, to focus even more. And when I saw in the slides today from Nils, the vision, which had some numbers in it, I don't remember exactly the numbers, 1 million of this, 10,000 of that. To me, actually, for me, that made me think, okay, that's not really a compelling vision that I emotionally can connect to. So what, if you get 2 million and you want a 1 million, good for you. Did that make the world a better place? I think I would, in your shoes, I would tune the vision statement a little bit more to be something that's clearer, that's a little bit more connecting to your overall story. It's good to have some goals, and yes, by 2020, all kinds of companies will have some goals and saying that by 2020 we want so many installations or so many sites, but is that really the measure of your success? Sounded to me a little bit like a disconnect to this passion, to this Umbraco feeling that I hear normally. So I would work a little bit more on that. Make that the core of the story that you're telling. And if you work on it, I think you have a huge lead. That's also, I think, your word, compared to all the competitors. I think Umbraco is not here. That's at least not how I see it, to be the most profitable Danish software company there is. I think you need to be profitable to reinvest in the growth and in the future. But I see Umbraco as one of those companies where if you decide to be an employee or a partner or even a customer, you contribute to something where business is a force of a positive change in society. Because, and you have to work on the words, because you are revolutionizing the content experience or something. There's something there that I feel that's the Umbraco story on the vision and on the mission and how to make more noise. Then on the partners, I cannot speak to this specific case. I would definitely recommend having more tiers and many more partners. How to get there, I think that's somebody's job who's in the room. That's, you can also argue a little bit, the Kentico, is it really 28 partners or is it just partners on paper? I remember when I worked here, Intershop was big and they had 1,000 partners, but perhaps 500 of them had never really done a project. And, you find your own kind of the Umbraco way to do the partner infrastructure with the right certification and hopefully the right way also to keep the existing partners happy. But I think from a customer point of view, and to go back to the suite, it would make sense also, given that it's not a brand new project, it's been around for more than a decade, to say, okay, there are layers of partners and some have a bigger commitment and do events like these, or have gone to trainings and what have you, have done 10 projects. And as a customer, I can then trust them perhaps a little bit more, or I can use that to shortlist when you have 28. Then I still wanted to challenge a little bit more US versus Germany. Because, again, start with the why. Are we going there just because it's bigger? Because, again, if that's the case, that doesn't really resonate to me with the vision and mission of Umbraco. Why? I keep asking why until you find the answer. And then the answer might be that the US is the right thing to be. But given, again, this vision, mission, the story, the partners, it just seems to me like expanding in circles around the center of the universe, which is, of course, Odense, would make more sense than jumping, and throwing the pen 6 time zones away. I'm not saying give up on the US, but similar to not spreading yourself too thin in too many focus areas and too many new products, I think there's a limit to how many strategic markets can you have. And I can definitely see the temptation of the US, perhaps of Canada and the UK as well. But does that really fit? Like, how can you design it in a way so that it really fits with your point of departure and you don't let go of the roots? I think that will be the key challenge, because it's been done before. Yes, even Danish companies have been very successful in the US. Sitecore could be one example, others as well. But it's a tough road too, and it comes at a price. You can only use that time once, alongside the money, of course, as well. That's, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I had prepared. Thank you very much for being a part of it. Thank you for contributing. I liked the discussion. Gave me some food for thought as well. If something comes to mind and you want to tell me later or whatever, you can easily find me on LinkedIn, whatever. Send me a note. I would love to continue this conversation, and I would be very happy to be invited back next year to the Umbraco-Festival 2019, and then we can go through this list, or we can talk about something completely different. Let's see where the future takes us. Thank you for coming.